fleet. So I was saying previously to this that like, hey, we're probably fine because the U.S. fleet would probably not go anywhere near where China could lob a missile and take us out without us being able to counteract it. And Leon said he had thoughts. So Leon, where what could China take out our fleet? Is that like an actual concern, or do you think that the U.S. is sufficiently non-suicidal in terms of being near them?
I mean, the U.S. armed forces certainly are anything but suicidal.
Mm-hmm.
The problem, I suppose, comes down to willingness to escalate. So, a core tenet. This is why hypersonic missiles became such a problem so quickly, right? Was that core tenet of U.S. force projection has been to build aircraft carriers. So the way the US typically deploys force around the world is with its aircraft carriers. There are some forward bases, but especially as it invested more in the aircraft carriers, it kind of scaled some of those back. And an aircraft carrier is relatively vulnerable. It's a giant floating city. But there are steps you can take. You have other ships that go with it and what it's protected, etc. But the problem you have with a hypersonic vehicle or anything being hypersonic is if it's ballistic, right? It launches up and it comes down on top of you, so you can really get an opportunity to see it coming. Even if you've launched it from somewhere else on the other side of the planet, it has to go very high. So if you think of a circle, you can't see over the curvature of the Earth, so
yeah,
you see off sideways. So it spends a long time over the horizon, so you can see it with something. But a hypersonic vehicle by design flies very low and very fast. So by the time you've seen it, it's almost going to be on top of you. And there isn't really much you can do about that in terms of modern capabilities. Even defending, I mean, the US has done a great deal to move its hypersonic capabilities forward, as is readily readable in most press releases these days. But nonetheless, the ability to sort of shoot a hypersonic missile is very difficult. And so it is disproportionately problematic for the US military, as by a very large number, they have far more aircraft carriers than almost anyone else. I forget how many China has, but I
think it's 2.
Yeah, it's like...
And they're local. They're local. They can't really go beyond. They're like a blue water navy. They don't go far. I think they're diesel too.
Right. It's like, it's something like America has the same number of aircraft carriers pretty much as the rest of the world put together. And most of those other aircraft carriers are owned by allied nations. So, but that kind of strategy, much of the US the strategy of its force protection relies on the protection of those aircraft carriers, and a hypersonic missile is a problem. Of course, if China is hitting aircraft carriers with hypersonic missiles, something in international relations has gone horrendously wrong, and it's time for us all to duck and cover.
Mm-hmm. So the idea is that they potentially, in theory, they could potentially hit a carrier or a task force. But the thing that deters them is this idea that there'll be an escalation to the level that that would make Russia probably blush. Like the response to that would destabilize them.
Unless China has a very good reason to blow a hole in a US aircraft carrier and sink it to the bottom of the ocean, like incredibly good reason, the response to that strike, assuming that the everyone here is like willing to go along with it, right? The president or whoever says yes, the appropriate response to that strike is nuclear. That's how you respond. That's what you do. They don't have any aircraft carriers. You can't really sink them back, so you nuke them. That's if you aren't looking to de-escalate, that's your response. And it's a bad day for everyone. Let's be honest.
Would potential sanctions and stuff work effectively if you just cut off China from the rest of the world like they did Russia? Would that do anything to them? Or are they just too big on their own?
the domestic market in China is enormous, although they rely heavily on the rest of the world for much of the money they make. To my understanding, and I'm certainly not a politics major or anything, they have substantial currency reserves, and there's enough people in the world that don't care about kind of the Western world point of view that I'm not sure how important the sanctions would be. But I mean, moreover, that is the if China's hitting US aircraft carriers with hypersonic missiles, there's been a very big that's a declaration of war. That's what it is, right? It's like the sinking of a famous US boat during World War II, right? Like that starts a war. That's what that is. So they can do it, and it's a problem in the event of war with China. I think neither nation wants that, though. But everyone knows that would just be a bad day.